So I was listening. Oh man, I forgot what I was going to say.
Thanks for joining me. So Ben, you were just telling me, so we were just discussing the idea of sending out a very fiery email, wasn't it, Ben? And you're like
Yeah.
my moon, and I'm like the burning sun. And then I respect Ben's decisions to always pass it by him. And Ben does the good barometer thing. What's the good barometer, Ben?
It's just a gut instinct whether or not I like something or
Okay.
not.
And so Ben, I said to Ben, I said, is this bad or good? And you said what?
Nope, I don't like
Bad. This is bad.
it.
You need to X out that email, and you need to just say, hey, save it and then burn it. Right? Save it and burn it. But you know what I just realized? I can
What?
say it right here in an anonymous manner. I can
Yeah.
say it anonymously. Okay, so there are some men of character and women of character, some people of genuine character, a host of people who have shown us kindness, from family to friends to colleagues to all sorts of people in the world. And I really want to say one thing to them: the people who we didn't respect in our journey, that gunslinger's path of not listening, of having to go find out, of two guys who, Ben, we love to fail. We love to get hurt. We love to do the uncomfortable things and then get right back up again, right? With our newfound scars, right? And just like do it again. And so there's a lot of people who we didn't treat with like active listening.
Yeah.
Yep. There are a lot of people who we didn't make them feel important. We just didn't allow them to get involved. We didn't ask them for help. We didn't let them lead something, right? And so this goes out to all those people. All right. So when somebody comes back to me with a true gesture of kindness, a leave it on the door kind of opportunity. So this is a leave it on the door kind of opportunity. And you're saying, hey, our door is always unlocked, right, Ben? Our door is always unlocked because we are kind men who have known our failures and we have learned from them. And then we authentically come back to serve these people. And if someone's not interested in that, what is that to you, Ben?
I'm a big fan of giving people, I was going to say a second chance, but that's not it. I'm a big fan of, you meet somebody and you trust them. Just trust them. Even if they don't seem like they're trustworthy, well, I don't know, but basically trust somebody and give them, like, default being trust. Default is trust, and give people chances to do things like so you have to protect yourself from being hurt by the people that like, you have to have a little bit of protection involved, but to just trust people, because I think not having trust is one of the problems that we have in this world, and I don't want to contribute to that problem.
Okay.
And so I want more people to feel like, I want people to live people since people live up to their expectations. It's a tendency for people to live up to their expectations. I want to expect people that they're going to be trustworthy and hope that they live up to it.
So I heard something once about, so you're saying to me, just so I understand it clearly, is that you would trust someone and hope they live up to it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a progression of trust comes from respect through iteration of loyalty.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about that. If anybody's interested, check out bluprnt.org and search for a video called, there's two parts because I screwed up and dropped the stream link. There's two parts. What is trust to us? And those are sort of our systemic attempts. And we're going to move into some use cases and start talking about those kinds of things, right, Ben, coming up
Yeah.
in future videos. What we're going to do is we're going to give you a view into my mind before I'm about to send out a fiery email to somebody like, ooh, like, so my personal weakness is taking things personally. That's one of them. And I have almost no joy in success, right? Like I have almost no joy in success. What I am driven by is the fact that my mom, my dad, at certain points in my life did not give me the approval or other things that I wanted. I became like a self-sabotaging kind of guy. right? We talked about this where it's like, oh, you want to send me this big contract? Well, and my mom's like, oh, that's great. You're going to be successful. I'm like, fuck you, mom. Right? Like, seriously, like, to be honest, like, let's be honest about these things. Why some people are really would send these things out. And so I will keep this completely anonymous at the end of the video here. But Ben, so you feel as though you can trust someone first. So can we trust someone without having respect for them? To like really be able to say honestly, hey, you're struggling with this. I can clearly say it. They be honest about it. You share yours openly and you move forward mentoring both sides. Both people are mentors in certain regards. Does that sound like a healthy, trusting relationship, like intuitively to you?
Yes, the where
Yes. Right? Yes.
exactly.
Yes, exactly, right? And if it's not that, and you can't tell someone, "Hey, I think you've treated your kids like shit," right? I think that you put your success in front of your family. I think you did other things in your life. I think you let your mom play too much into your life. I think that you aren't authentic with people. I think that you can definitely get there, and we will never leave, right? That is something that we offer to our community is we don't walk out the door on people, right? We are there to work with them until they get to that point. And so we weren't be able to be authentic, were we, Ben?
Right. Well, let's talk about teachers for a second.
Yes, let's.
Oh, so a bad teacher is a teacher that can't teach you anything, right? So let's say you are trying to learn high school algebra and your teacher does not know high school algebra. Like that's a bad teacher. Like when we were in college, we had a particular professor who most of my friends were learning Java from a guy who didn't know anything about Java. He was trying to read the textbook faster than the students, and he didn't know how to teach them Java. Okay, now we like bad teacher, right? So now let's talk about so a teacher needs to be an authority, right? Now, what happens if you have a teacher who is a complete authority and is not willing to learn anything from their students? So you have a teacher who's looks at who looks as themselves as the premier authority on something and is not willing for the students to say, hey, look at this cool thing that I found that's new, or I don't know about that. Are you sure that's the way that works? That's also a bad teacher. Okay, so the good teacher is somebody that is willing to, that is higher than the students, can teach the students, but is also not within reach of the students. So the students can actually like teach the teacher, which is exactly what you were saying.
So that's really interesting. So are they unwilling to be equals from my notes here?
Yes. In is that true in both cases? In the case where a teacher thinks that they're the ultimate authority, they're not willing to be the equal of a student. They're not willing to be a student. They like, oh, well, I've already been my student. I never have to learn anything again. And obviously, teachers like that are very few and far between. Usually teachers like will learn that. And there's also bad ways for students to go to their teachers and be like, yeah, you were wrong. That's the wrong way to do it. But in the other case is a teacher that doesn't know anything, is unwilling to be an equal. Maybe that could also be it. They're unwilling to admit that they are an equal. You could have a teacher who is barely ahead of students and to still be a good teacher by saying, yes, I'm sorry, I'm only 3 pages ahead of you guys in the book. However, everybody in this room, including me, are going through this process learning. So I am ahead, so you should listen to me on this. I am the expert in the room on these 3 pages. One of you might be the expert in last week's lesson because you might have learned it better than I did. So we can have an equal conversation about last week's stuff, or maybe one of you guys is ahead of us and we can have you guys lead. So not willing to be equals does seem like it plays into both of those cases.
Yeah, it's really interesting. If there isn't both people, like Simon Sinek talked about, 2 mentors in the environment, right? Like you are my mentor in many ways. And I knew that. And I came to you and I said, hey, I'm about to send something that I feel might be potentially very disrespectful to somebody and really fuck with our strategy, like really like not take this train in the right direction. And I need to show you, like my wife or any advisor, any person that commits to believing in something with us, to share risk and reward, to honor their involvement in things that are, critical to their expertise or critical to a situation that involves them or other things like that. And what did we go and do, Ben? What kind of community would we build to like help with that?
Community of equals.
Bluprnt.org. Bluprnt.org. And you know why there's no vowels, Ben? Why is there no vowels?
Because they're extra.
Oh, because it doesn't work without you. We only left the U in, right? So Bluprnt doesn't work without you. All right, just straight up. So we've learned a lot in this community by what do you think that's really attributed to? Like a gunslinger can heal, that person sending off fiery emails, taking things personally. That what can that person do?
There I think learn, and learning involves trial and error, and learning from trial and error involves making mistakes, getting messy, Miss Frizzle, and also
little magic school bus there.
a little bit of magic school bus, yeah, but also willing to pick themselves up. And okay, so if you're going to learn from trial and error, like if you know that you're a kind of person that's going to learn from trial and error, let me back up a second. There are multiple kinds, there are different kinds of coders in the world. Some coders read the docs, read the manuals, and sit down and write an entire program without debugging it once. They write the entire thing out, and then they try it. And they're like, I don't know how this function works. I'm going to research it, or I don't know how to display a carriage return without a new line, right? So I'm going to learn how to do this, and then I'm going to read all the docs, read about the edge cases, program them into my code, and bam, I'm good. A bunch of the moon lander rockets and stuff were never tested. I mean, a bunch of the software that went into those things was not tested because they couldn't test it in situ. They had to write it and then like just verify that it was going to work without running it. That's not the kind of programmer I am. I trial and error everything, right? Like so I pretty much am testing after every line or so, and that makes me a different kind of programmer than the other school of thought. But that means that I need to embrace the concept that I'm going to be programming by trial and error, which means I need to take that design loop where I make a change and then I test it. Since I'm spending a lot of time in that design loop can't be long. I can't use Docker build containers that take 5 minutes to compile. I need to have live editing code. Like I need to have like a Flask thing that does dynamic reloading where it will reload just a single module of my program and give me a failure. What I'm looking for is that failure. It will give me that failure in a half a second instead of 5 minutes. That's so because I know that I learned by trial and error, I know that trial and error loop needs to be fast for me. If you're the kind of person that learns from trial and error in life, that means you need to understand you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, when you hear that phrase, setting yourself up for failure, that sounds bad. Like that people use that as you're setting yourself up for failure. But what if failure is the good thing because you learn from it? But that means you're setting yourself up for the right way to do things. So what that means is you just need to be consciously aware that you're going to walk yourself into failure and be ready to pick yourself up and be ready to embrace the failures.
100%. And so is it that people are afraid of going into a room and saying, hey, I'm not going to make an introduction to my friends because they might think it's stupid what I'm doing? Is that at the root of what we're talking about? The idea of not being accepted?
Hmm.
Yes. So, I know we can't play Ben Bromer in the background, but that's quite a deep thought. So is it like being accepted?
So the concept of like walking into a party and not wanting to skirt the outsides because you don't think you would be accepted, or the concept of or is it more about that your friends, the problem being that one's friends would not introduce you, because they're ashamed of you.
You know, it's really interesting. So people you find to be authentic in your life are always willing to just like, hey, go talk to this guy. I don't need to like route you through me to get to him so I can get value off of your relationship for life, right? That's not what a mentor does.
Mm.
You can never pay for a mentor, right? It's just that is where value will be driven for this generation, not solely, but that is a jet turbine to help tap the brilliance of a generation. Like we both know it, like that's just going to be what it is. And it's going to ride alongside many other things like technology and a race to escape a finite resource world, to name a few. Woo! And then what are we doing? We're going through a Thomas Malthus event where, you know, like he talked about population growth and food growth, right? And what
Right.
happens in this place? Not good
Yeah.
things. Not good, right? And, you know, people fly away and, you know, we lose our loved ones, we go through great suffering. And then what comes after suffering?
Well, learning.
Great innovation, almost a
Yeah.
renaissance, like a tech renaissance. So we're about to see the next Silicon era, right? You know,
Well,
it won't even be that. What would you call it, Ben?
the information age. But
Right?
so a couple of cool things. First of all, the first oil crisis happened in 1890, if I remember correctly, something around there. There were little old ladies that were freezing to deaths in their apartments because they couldn't afford fuel oil to burn to keep them warm. There was an oil crisis. Oil quadrupled in price over the course of, and so and it was a huge crisis. The problem was they were burning whale oil, and it was very finitely limited. It was a very finite resource. And the
So they,
thing
yeah,
that's Yep, and the thing that saved the little old ladies the next year was petroleum products, because they went and said, "Oh my gosh, we could drill it out of the ground instead of drilling out of a whale's head," and that gave the oil they were using from the whale is on the well, part of it was the sonar lens that whales have, that the humpback whales have. Humpback? No, some other kind of whale. Anyway, they have a oil pocket in their head that's a lens for sonar, and so they were burning this stuff. It was lamp oil and everything, and so petroleum products solved that problem because you could drill oil out of the ground that was better quality than the whale oil, and it
mm,
was and
and
it
that's
was so much cheaper once you got
blinding. That justification we talked about yesterday is really blinding, right? Like if it's
right.
working, we don't question it. But if it's
Right.
not working, what do?
We
We
start questioning.
shame and blame an
Oh
entire
yeah,
generation of children for being difficult. That is
yeah.
not an exception. That was the norm, right? And there is no wonder if you're listening to this, and I bet you just closed the video, but if you're still listening, that is no wonder why you have an issue with your kids. There is nobody needs to even question that. Try this. Jordan Peterson said once, this will help massively with your kids, right? Just listen straight up. And when you said something to me about how whale oil was replaced by oil, right, at the end
Hmm.
there because it was cheaper, right, and other things, you know, more available, other things like that, less, it doesn't move, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a big play in logistics. And
yeah.
so yeah,
You have to
if,
drill through. Go ahead.
oh no, and so what I'm just saying is I'm repeating back to Ben what he feels is best. And so Ben, do you
Mm.
want to add more to it as you just heard?
Yes, yeah. So yes, you have to drill through hundreds of feet of rock instead of you know catching a whale, which is arguably harder. The investment cost is harder. The initial investment cost is harder. But
Sure.
after you do drill through hundreds of tons of feet of rock, now you have a whale. Now you have a pocket that's way. The investment is a fascinating crossover. Um, at the same time, when gasoline was up at $4.50 a gallon back in 2015, was it 16? Anyway, that's when a lot of electric cars companies started being founded, because people were like, oh, gas is really, really expensive. We need another solution. And now that gas is back to $2 a gallon, the pressure to work on other things has fallen off, because we like things that are easy and simple, and we don't want to invest in a thing Like, we would much rather eat the Triscuits that are next to us than go and get cookies from the kitchen.
This is interesting. So we'd rather approach a non-moving target than a moving one, right? Especially when it comes to survival, right? In Maslowian
Yeah.
concerns. So
Yeah.
here's an interesting thought. One, your camera needs to move, so you're actually looking at the camera. That would be awesome because I don't feel like you're engaged. And so what I'm going to do is be really genuinely authentic here, right? And so I'm, me and the audience are here, but then you're looking at my screen, so let's line up in the future your camera and your thing to be together. And I don't mean that in a critical manner. I mean that in the sense of like, I don't feel as though we're engaging. And so this is one example of how we can make each other more comfortable, right? And the listening also pairs with that as well. I'm just giving it out as an example. Me and Ben are generally what most people say a very well-oiled machine. And even though I'm feeling critical right now, and I will strive to express it better always in the future, Ben, when it comes down to it, more ask your permission. And that's what I should have done. I said,
Yeah.
what do you feel about? See, we can learn right away, and I can hear myself going through it. So Ben, how would you feel about aligning that up in the future?
Yes. No, that's perfect.
Right. Yes. And see, as co-founders, we don't move forward on anything unless we both feel good about it.
There's actually a great YouTube video about, I think it was Steve Mould or one of the science builder type people, somewhere between. He built a camera system that has a projector and a one-way mirror, so the camera is in the middle of the screen, right? So you can maintain actual eye contact with people.
See, because I want to look at you, right? I want to look at you right now, but I'm looking back and forth at the mirror, or because I'm in your room, right? You're allowing telepresence into your room. That's so cool. Thank you. As a note,
yeah,
and about a year now, almost every day.
Yeah, that's actually true. In fact, I just looked at the how long we've been developing together, and it's 255 days since we created since my user was added on AWS.
And a platform.
Yeah, right.
Just so much benefit across the board. And it's like we just, guys like us, when we find each other, right, we need to be able to replicate this experience that we're having. Like if you're watching this now, in the future, live streaming, whatever, this is totally like, this is what people think of like nirvana between people, right? That's like that deep connection you have with someone, and it's tenuous at best. Like I just made you uncomfortable with us talking about ourselves as examples. Additionally, I learned from that I should ask for permission to use ourselves as a personal example. However, I think me and Ben have that permission going in. However, I need to reiterate that on a regular basis and just show transparently, we're not talking about just helping your kids here, right? We're talking about all your relationships. Ask for people's permission, actively listen to them, and learn from it in real time. Because guess what? When you actually give a shit about what someone else says, it's incredible. Like Dale Carnegie says, if you are interested in others, genuinely interested in them, not looking just what I want, what's in it for me, what's in it for me, what's in it for me. If you really are genuinely interested in other people, you will make more friends in 3 months than you will in 3 years. That is insane. Charles Schwab, Carnegie, all these people. And I know lots of people will say lots of things, and please speak your truths around this subject. Blow us up on YouTube because I want to know all the objections, and we're going to try to make those more comfortable, right? At the same time, the more predictable our environment is, from whale oil to oil, the more predictable our environment is, the more lackadaisical we become. Right. It's interesting until we have like a consciousness shift in this regard, which Daniel Kahneman talks about in the book, a very fantastic book, Thinking Fast and Slow. He says, all right, people don't seem to run towards benefit, right, Ben?
Yeah.
They don't seem drawn to that. They seem like they avoid cost.
And it's not, so if you ask somebody if they run towards benefit, they say, of course. But the thing is, the key is they don't actually run towards cost at their base levels of their mind. The subconscious doesn't know how to run towards cost. It only knows how to, it's that the subconscious only knows how to run towards, the subconscious only knows how to avoid pain and with a very, very short attention span, run towards dopamine.
Okay, so check this out. So I have to ask a tough question to you then in front of everybody. Do I have your permission?
Yeah.
Okay, so check this out. And see, the reason Ben doesn't really give a shit about what I'm about to ask is that we just have that trust with each other. So should I actually send the email out? See, because
No.
okay, so we're still at no. We're going to
We're
stay at
still at no.
right? We're still at no, but here's my reasoning. That feels like honesty to somebody. And who in your life sends you real honesty? Like just real honesty about who you are.
Well, shockingly few people, right?
Okay?
Because everybody else wants to.
Wouldn't you like that?
Yeah, people want to. They want to tailor the message for you.
I'm not going to tailor the messages. So if you want some real honesty from me, but that's loving at the same time and no brutal, right? It's like, hey, I really appreciate you in these ways.
You know what the difference between loving and brutal honesty is?
What?
If you ask for it.
Hmm.
If you go up to somebody and you tell them that they're really ugly, right? Like you just are brutally honest to somebody on the street that you've never met. That's brutally honest.
Okay,
But
so check this out. But what if they're the kind of person that's about to, like the tribes that we learned about yesterday? It was a very interesting scientific study of why young girls and older women work together, right? Because the young girl is supposed to be leaving the spirit realm, and the older woman is entering it, right? So it's a legacy transfer going on. So if you're entering the spirit realm, is it ethical for you not to improve yourself and try to leave the campsite better than when you found it? Or is it okay for like the boomers to just check out and enjoy their environments and just like say, hey, it's your problem now. It's just your problem now. All right. That nobody needs to question how unethical that is. Right. And it's being done. Okay. So you're a difficult kid. All right. We started at the beginning with how to make things better with your kids. So you're a difficult kid and you don't have my appreciation. You don't hang out with me, which I complain about. Right. And then you have kids and I like circumvent you into your other relationship and all sorts of stuff like that. I'm very familiar with in my own personal life, which are my boundaries. And those are very healthy for my family. That's healthy for your business. That's healthy for your personal life. So yes, someone might ask for advice. Right. And you know, the person who's supposed to be asking, who is that? The young girl or the old woman?
Well, you would think it would be the young girl, but surprisingly, it turns out so once you can get once the old woman, once the mentor gets into a healthy relationship, the mentor realizes that they can ask questions of the mentee.
Oh, this is hilarious. I'm getting emails back also now that we're the spark of this. But yeah, when it comes down to it, and for those people who are sending me those emails, right? But I don't need to say it to you, right? I don't really need to, because this is something that should be shared with the world, right? I just think you guys are fantastic and you should give love a chance. Straight up. Like, when was the last time you said to someone, I love you, brother? Right? I love you, Ben. You are fantastic. Right? You're just fantastic. And that's uncomfortable, right? That's not logical. That's pursuing benefit. That is training yourself to not avoid a word that is an anathema to the human language: cost. How much is it going to cost me? You have lost control of your sales conversation right at that moment. How much is it going to cost me? Well, you know, I've good news for you, Ben. Right? Instead of the $80,000 that you might think this is going to cost you, you're only going to have to invest $40,000. Right? It says a completely different feeling. Cost versus investment. Errol Garrison, quote Errol Garrison from a podcast with Chris Do called The Future on Contagious Selling. It's beautiful. It might change your life. Please go check it out. Chris Do, Errol Garrison, you guys are just fantastic. Again, Errol's been a part of my life without being a part of it. I've read your stuff. Thank you. It was part of my journey to be inspired by things like that. So what are you? You're inspired by these people and they don't want to go up the mountain with you, Ben. Do we begrudge them of that? No.
No, if people don't want to follow you, then they don't have to.
Yeah, and that's fine. And we want them to try it any other way we want in the world. Competing truths sort of becomes progress. But then at the same time, we would go with abundance and say, hey, any competing truths are actually just partners in abundance, right? Because we need to create abundance if we're going to escape a finite resource world, right? Right. So your yin is finite and your yang is like abundance when it comes down to it.
So there's a there's a guy who wrote a series of novels, and I can't remember what it was called, but
Oh, talk about the Gunslinger and then that guy too.
oh yeah, yeah. So, well, this guy wrote a series of, so, okay, some aliens send a probe, like a satellite to the world, right? And so they land on Earth. They're looking at our technology.
Story time,
Um,
Ben Halloran.
Story time with Ben Halloran. So looking at our technology, it's like the 1600s. There's castles, there's knights, and so this data feed is beamed back to their homeworld. So they see this and they're like, oh well, we're going to go invade. So they load up a bunch of colony ships with the generation method. They're gonna have generations on the way there, and they have like 200 F-16s, alien equivalent of air superiority fighters, 200 F-16 like F-22 capable air superiority fighters, like 1,000 Apache gunship helicopter type capable things.
Yeah, they're ready to go.
Yeah, 1,000 Abrams tanks, and then like 100,000 troops, like with more modern like laser gun. I don't even probably had. I can't remember now. But anyway, the point is, this is what they're going to invade the United States with, or not the United States, the Earth with. But Earth is in the Middle Ages, so that's going to be, you can totally own the world with that force during the Middle Ages. Here's the problem: it takes 150 years for the signal to get back to them. Then it takes 300 years, because they're traveling at like half light speed, for them, or I don't know, remember the numbers, but basically they land in the middle of World War II. The first thing that they do when they get to Earth is they detonate a matrix, like a spread of nuclear bombs way up in the ionosphere of Earth. And these nuclear bombs, they don't release radiation. What they do is they create a massive electromagnetic pulse, and they blow every single transistor on the planet. But this is World War II. We didn't have any transistors. We had vacuum tubes, and vacuum tubes are immune to EMP. So they land, and a couple of things. So the writer, the author, had this cool. The author was through the minds of the aliens. Like, the message he was writing is that humans, these aliens, evolve over thousands of years. Not evolve, but their technology evolves over thousands of years. It took them like 3,000 years or something to go from vacuum tubes to actually they skipped vacuum tubes. They just developed transistors out of nothing. It took them thousands and thousands of years to make iterations into an invention, because they don't have the same innovation cycle that we humans do. Humans are voraciously innovative, and these aliens were not. They didn't prioritize it, and so that was part of the thing. And then so now it's about this small modern level alien force against the entire world, forming up. The Axis and allies unite against the aliens to take on. And there's a really good scene where they have Gustav, the German cannon that was assigned to take out the Maginot Line.
That's what we need, is two sides. We talked about this morning, of two different sides of a conversation, because if you're always on my side, or I can't see that you're not, we can't have a conversation.
Right. We have to unite against the problem, instead of, you and me need to unite against the problem, instead of instead of standing on opposite sides of the table fighting over a problem. We join on the same side of the table, and we work our way through the problem.
Yes, everything needs a voice, but everybody must be focused on the same mission. And so it's the aliens, right? Everybody, comes together. It's the end of Brave, right? Where she says to the clans, you came together and you saved my father's life, and he saved you, and you flipped a ship, and you built a bridge, and we all did it together, right? And it's like the stone soup, right?
Hmm.
Let's say it's a system where, a traveler has nothing and they come into town, they fill a pot with water by a stream, and villagers come along and get curious. And they're like, hey, if you could spare 3 carrots out of your 100 carrots, it would go a long ways and we'll all have a meal,
No,
right?
no, that's not that is charity. It wasn't a charity thing. They said, we will give you some of our soup,
Oh yeah, I
which
know.
currently is boiling water.
I said at the end, everybody gets the water, and then or everybody gets the soup. Everybody gets some soup. It's like Fandango the movie, where everybody gets to go to the wedding in town, right? Same
Right.
thing. And so before you eat the soup, you remove the inedible part, which is the stone, or it's called the axe story in some cultures, or other things like that. There's an axe or a stone in there. It's the inedible part. This vision of the future is inedible. It's inedible. It's not. No one can fully eat it by themselves, right? No one could possibly eat it. And so there's a really beautiful imagery here in the story. When it comes down to it, how would you say it? There's the core thing of what we've been talking about, of this email, this representation of either honesty, right? That's not being asked for. And should it be sent to someone leaving a child, entering that Nietzsche camel phase, right, of learning the rules? Should we say those things to people and reduce their ability to have that blue sky, that environment? Should we put in that box of predictability that big corporations want these days? Probably not. We should probably let them, like Zen Buddhism or the beginner's mind talks about, of letting someone just explore a project. And those are usually the most like creative, incredible days, of the project. Then at the end of it, we have someone entering that end of life. That, did I leave the campsite better? What was my life all about? Other things like that. And so you have to sit there and think, all right, well, should that person be told?
So I just had an epiphany, and now I'm getting a phone call, but
Well,
I'll
then
ignore that
ignore
for
the
now.
phone call. Yes.
So here's the epiphany. Feedback has to come with love. So you either ask for loving feedback, in which case the feedback doesn't need to have love and you can get honest feedback, right? Or if you're going to give somebody feedback and they're not asking for it in love, you have to give the feedback in love with the filter.
Okay, then here's the time. Let's think about this email, okay? And we won't talk about who this is being sent to. Anyone in our community, we respect your privacy deeply, and we would never use you specifically as an example without your permission, just like what me and Ben have discussed, right? Our personal ethics walk with us in any space that we work in, and that's why we're very much able to be effective in the spaces that we've described. So here we go, and we'll close it. We'll be done in about 3 or 4 minutes, right, Ben?
Perfect.
I'm going to close it down with that. So, to whom this may concern, we are kind men and women of character who disrespected you in the past. However, the honesty we are ready to show people is what we have now. I would really reconsider attending the meeting that you immediately said no to. I would encourage you to read what's entailed there, and give it a chance, and be open-minded to understanding where we're coming from and moving forward and learning together. Why just get back into doing what you're doing when we can go accomplish what you're doing? This person's going back into a job. It's very similar to what they've done in the past, which isn't what they were dreaming about. Why just go back and do that? Why don't we go do what we had planned on right now? Maybe there's a few biases on truth that we could lose, or maybe we could move forward in some learning together. I find this to be what I'm about to share, what it is and what I feel. So here it is. And so this is the non-honest respect. This is, excuse me, this is not the positive side. It is honest respect, Ben, right? But this is not the positive side of this person. This is not what they show to the world. This is what Carl Jung talked about, the mirror, right? What I see in them, right? What I see as the man in the mirror, right? So this is someone who had no interest in hearing what I had to say before they left the organization. And this is very typical for people who do not want to hear what you have to say, who are so convinced on their own biases. And so I wonder to you, and I wonder to the world. And in fact, I want your feedback, world, on how this stuff needs to be sent to people who are 55 plus, who are walking away from their responsibilities to enjoy the world, right? Who didn't align their passions with what they do and now feel as though it's owed to them to not contribute, right? To not give back, to ignore their sons and daughters and other things like that. So I respected your request to not know the side of the story and not wanting to make an informed decision, as you encourage me always to do. I, however, do not longer pick or choose my ethics per situation like you. I think it's about time to stand up for all the people that you had to do things to, that you were asked to do, that you don't appreciate, and stop the cycle now. Let's change the world instead of getting more people into another structure that just crushes people's souls into little boxes of predictability. Kind regards and full honesty, your friend, Brian Stratton, a mentee and a mentor. And a note at the end, a mentor can only take someone to the precipice. The rest is up to the receiver. And if that isn't loving honesty, then I don't know what that is. And I want to know more. I want to learn more because I want to be able to give that to people in my life like they never gave it to me. You know how desperate I was for some feedback, some real honest feedback in my life from someone that wasn't my mom or my dad, who never truly believed in me and who never got that difficulty out of the way of their privy. It always had to be their comfort first, right? And then these people, it's not old dogs, new tricks, right? It's hard. Right? But it's hard to win and it's hard to lose, right? And what we're doing is losing by an entire generation of people just walking off. And I'm not talking the entire generation. You know who you are. It's sleazy and you can do better. And honest feedback. End cut.
Except the difference between, but honest does not always mean loving. So you see somebody that's got a tumor, and you're like, you have a tumor and I'm going to excise that tumor. So hold still while you just hack it out with a hatchet, right? So like that is, if you did that to a dog, you could persuade people that you were being loving by amputating its leg that was crushed by, but it's crushed by a truck. You're helping this dog, right? By amputating its leg. Mm-hmm. But you still need to but there's still but that's not the best way to do that. A better way to do that would be scalpel instead of hatchet, right? We're being okay, I'm going to cause this dog pain. I'm this person. I'm going to do something that makes you uncomfortable. I'm going to help you by doing a thing that's uncomfortable. But I'm putting down the hatchet, which is a tool of broad strokes and imprecision, and I'm picking up a scalpel, which is a tool of precision, and I'm going to do something that you don't like, but I'm going to take care and take careful of it. Now, I need to go find out how much cream we have and call Rachel back. So I will see you in a bit.
Wonderful. And we will see all of you another time too. I love the learning and thank you for sharing with me, Ben. I mean it. We're going to touch on this in the future. 2 Gunslingers signing out.
All right.